Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 342 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to clean up the pollution cloud around the base, and then start making some plutonium. Enjoy. Let's see, we're actually out of ammo, but I guess that was just limited amount of cordite. Which makes sense, because we're probably not really making it that fast. Yeah, I mean, it's going. But that's like a petroleum jelly thing. And that's based on oil residuals. And we're basically out of that now. And actually, it's interesting to see that Fuel Blocks is running at full blast. And it's trying its best to fill this up, but we're probably going to be using it faster than it can do that. Because now we don't want to just always make fuel blocks, because that's kind of what we're doing. Because it was never a limitation before this point. But now we want to hold on to that residual gas. At least so we can make the other things related to it. Like petroleum jelly. It's basically always pumping and it wants more than 10k. But at this point it's a dump. So let's set it to 40k instead. And let that fill up. And then once we have enough ammo scattered around, we can start on the wall, because we definitely don't want to build a new wall if we don't have a sufficient amount of ammo first. So as far as pollution now, it's the electronics assembling machines, and looks like we're not making anything anymore, but I think the ore sorting facilities were all definitely causing problems. And liquefiers. It seems like the general recipe here is taking one of the productivities out and putting a pollution reducing instead. But also, we totally can put the better machines in here. So let's do this. I guess we'll just leave it on ceramic pipes since it's not that big a deal. So if we do this, we can basically replace all of these machines with better versions. And lots of pipes get replaced, but mainly we're here for the machines. So yeah. Yeah, and I guess we'll hit all of these too. At least the ones that weren't upgraded yet. That'll take a few minutes. But let's come through here. It seems like assembling machine 5s are fine, but I actually kind of want to remove all of this so we don't do anything on accident. Let's just do the electronics assembling machines. The ones that can take productivities. Wow, they take 6. Well, that might explain why they're so capable of making a lot of pollution. And these are only in module 2s. But let's see. If we did 5 and 1, it would still be a 50% boost. It actually reduces the pollution. But for now, let's play it safe and just do the 1. So it's 125% boost of productivity and only 50% boost in pollution. So that seems pretty good. We just need to wait for all these machines to get placed. And we can kind of do the same thing with the ore sorting bus. We can take out one of the productivities and put in a pollution cleaning. And some of these are blue, but they both use the same module, so it doesn't really matter. It's just slightly less machines. But I kind of don't want to change any of those ratios. So we have facility 2, facility 3. And we'll just update it. So when we go across all of this, there we go. And actually all of these machines are probably producing a lot of the pollution that we're seeing. Because if you look at the short time frame, that assembling machine 4s are some of the biggest pollution causers. Right here, and these are all assembling machine 4s, and they're currently running at full blast, and they have a ton of productivities. So something tells me we can update these. Man, we have so many extra productivity modules now just in storage because of all of the machines we're taking them out of. I wonder if the recipe changed here, because we're not making these machines anymore. The chests are just empty. So these require titanium bearings. It's not requesting them from buffer chests, and it should. But also this is the one where it requested way too many of each item. This is the old style. So I kind of want to fix that. Definitely have produced too many of some of these. But oh well. Hopefully that should fix those ones. Not terribly sure why this isn't working, because it says it needs a titanium bearing, and yet one is in there. That's weird. Oh, those might have been filter inserters that I placed there. That would explain why they wouldn't swing. But those are going, which means we don't need these ones anymore. Time to trash the inventory. Interesting that I'm running out of buffer chests, which means something must be different here. Out of steel chests. Although that request might be kind of strange because it seems like it's way too high. And I think we're good there. Now we get those requests in there and hopefully this is all fixed now. So all of the modules got placed into the sorting machines. They're not really running much, but when you look at like the past hour of getting rid of pollution, we've certainly made a lot of progress. Certainly assembling machines are still the maximum, but it's probably all of these. But now that they've been replaced, we can go through it with the modules again. Let's update it. So mostly productivity, but that one pollution cleaning. There we go. And seemingly short on wood. I imagine we could keep up with it just fine. So let's just place these with ghosts. And this thing really snakes in here. One thing we're starting to see is that our tree setup is running again. In part because we end up having room for the salt. Previously it couldn't run because there was no room for salt. But now that we're not overloaded, it's starting to run every once in a while. Well, we're not hearing any complaining, at least from this wall. But what about pollution? Well, it's still a red cloud. But we're actually getting to the point where the burner heat sources are actually the biggest pollution creator, which is kind of what you would expect, considering it's burning fuel. I mean, that kind of puts the balance into perspective when you have something that burns carbon fuel for power, and yet it's the assembling machines that create the pollution, not the thing that makes electricity. So that's like, I don't know about that. Okay, it's time for a new wall. The ammo isn't quite ready yet, but I also want to get this process started because it can take a while. So first we'll clean up any bits that are on the ground. Clear out any trees. Oh, there's a lot of them. Then we need to start the wall. In this situation, we can't quite just start building it because we kind of need to make a new pattern. One, we do need the artillery shells in there, but also we need to get these things pointed the right way. Uh-oh, stuff's getting destroyed still, but that's actually down here. Okay, let's get these facing the right way. And then we are going to need to make a new blueprint, unfortunately. So let's see what happens. Yep. Seems to be good now. Although every once in a while there's a little bit of water in the way. Probably should just walk up this thing and fill them all in. Oh, looks like we're out of titanium plates here. Huh. Why didn't that start up? That's what I get for not checking on it to make sure it worked. Ah. It did work, but this was dumping in the titanium plates when it should have been doing the titanium coils. So this thing got completely polluted by plates. Not sure where these plates are actually going to go, but robots are picking them up, so as long as they're not going to the junk warehouse, then they're going somewhere useful. There we go. I suppose these machines could take advantage of that one pollution as well. Seems pretty good. starting to fire again. So what's pollution look like now? Assembly machine 4s and 5s. It's probably in large part concrete here. At least those are the 4s. So since we're here, let's upgrade all of this, since it's all making very heavy use of productivities. Basically anywhere we see running machines that have a lot of productivity modules, then it's probably pumping out a lot of pollution. Uh-oh. So what went on here? Oh. The inserters are facing the wrong way. That would cause problems. Amazing what happens when the inserters are facing the right way. The train timed out, but it's still going to unload properly. Except I don't know about that, because now it made another request. You know what? It'll probably fit fine. It looks like the warehouse is really low. Well, eventually we're going to have to start producing uranium again. Even though the factory's done pretty good job for itself right now. We can't just leave this off forever. So, let's do the centrifuge too. Except, one cleaning. That ought to help a little bit. Oh, there's a loop going here. Well, we don't want that. Probably then just want this to be a storage chest instead. Just alien artifact for somewhere for them to go if there's nowhere else. There we go. And the fuel blocks are basically gone from all of this. Nothing left to see. Well, knowing that, since we are here, we might as well deconstruct the whole thing. It's kind of crazy that we're at this point, but it's cleared out, which is what I wanted to wait for. So let's just grab all of it. It's all going to get rebuilt. Except maybe leave that latch there just so the settings remain. Basically all of these setups are going to run on the same belts. Instead of having different priorities for different fuels, all of the fuels are going to be mixed together on the same single belt. And then they just get burned as they get burned. And we're going to create some logistics holes in here, but whatever. So now that we did that, we super duper want to make sure that uranium is good to go again. And it should be. Those reductions in productivity will hurt a little bit, but the pollution was just too much to manage. Finally, all of the assembling machines on the circuit bus were replaced, at least the big expensive setups. So we kind of want to go through the same thing. We don't know exactly what the balance of all of this is, but any machines that take productivities, just removing one of the productivities and putting a pollution cleaning in there should be a pretty good solution. And you can see that almost all of these are completely stacked with productivities. Like huge swaths of this setup. I mean, productivities are good. But certainly, my nerf to power consumption made them much less good. And I think this works pretty well, the fact that you're not necessarily forced to use pollution cleaning, but you have to, like, think about it. Because we're not going to replace every single machine in the factory and put pollution cleanings in there, but in certain setups, you have to think to yourself, can I get away with the productivities, or is it too much? And of course, we can always switch it back later if we want. Get all of this action now. Well, because we're actually using pollution cleanings for once. So our fresh blue circuit setup gets them too. Because pretty much every machine here uses them. Let's see, didn't replace these, but probably should. I say down to green circuits is probably fine. The tiers lower than this, the setups just aren't very big. Of course, we fire this up, and the centrifuges are creating a lot of pollution, but that is to be expected. it is a large setup that uses a lot of productivities, so I don't know. That said, it's kind of weird that nuclear power would be so polluting, and it doesn't actually make that big a difference if you want to compare what happens here. Hopefully this window stays. Nope. So you can see here that it does help the yield of all of these, especially the 238, by using these. So we remove this. We're both losing burnable fuel and non-burnable fuel, but we're going to have more plutonium that we know what to do with, and it can create many, many gigawatts. So getting maximum yield of 238 compared to input uranium just doesn't seem particularly valuable, at least not when looking at the pollution of the factory when the thing is going. If we have all those modules, it will create 8 pollution. So seems better that it's pollution neutral, because it is uranium and it really shouldn't be adding so much pollution. Although it's a little less efficient for the module slots in particular, because this is going to drop pollution to the bare minimum. And usually if you drop anything to the bare minimum, then you're not getting the full value out of your module slots. I just don't like the idea of uranium processing creating so much pollution. And hey, look at that. We're actually running the reactors now. At least to some extent. There we go. Because they would pulse on and off pretty much all together. That each one has its own temperatures, which are controlled uniquely on a cube basis. However, all of the reactors as a whole run to keep the accumulators charged. So it looks like these are pretty much the only things providing power now. So if we wait a moment and see how they work, there they go. They turn on and have no problem at all, because we're getting 7.6 gigawatts out of them. And they pulse on and off. So that's good. And you can definitely see how the centrifuges were really bad. And then we added the modules in. And they're probably continuing to be added. And it looks like those are electronics assembling machine 1s now that are on the top. And if it's a 1, then it must be the original tier of machines. Oh yeah. Certainly we could help with pollution there as well. But I have noticed that the biter attacks are not nearly as frequent or crazy as they used to be. We're certainly still getting a bunch of it in places, but at the very least they're not destroying wall parts anymore. Since the early level machines are running and creating a lot of pollution, I suppose it's time to upgrade them. Basically all of it. Oh wow, those are the yellow assembly machines still. I wasn't expecting to give the factory such a detailed pass-through to upgrade all these things, because I tend not to like to do that. I like to build things and then just kind of know that they're good. But our factory is really suffering from pollution right now, which isn't something I say very often. So we've got to try to do our best to clean it up. Wow, we're actually like kind of really maxing out on a lot of these belts, but I think it's because we're just creating so many modules right now. And hey, we have some good news in that we have 45 pieces of plutonium now, which means that we can start this process soon. And yeah, it's going to be maxed out with productivity modules, but in this case, we definitely want them. So it looks like these things have a combination of productivities and speeds. But considering that these machines probably are way overpowered now, we probably want to try to completely max out their pollution cleaning effect. I imagine they're still going to be plenty fast even after this. Just as an idea, we can upgrade all of these and see what we get. Because I think it was around like 10 per second or something like that. Actually, it's probably based on the maximum of this belt. Oh, main 2 is overloaded. On what? It looks like all of those circuit boards didn't quite fit. But we will use them eventually. And in fact, right now we're actually using quite a few of them, because we're upgrading so many machines, building so many turrets and all that other stuff. Alright, so in the end, what are we going to get here? About 12. So that seems about right. And they have a -50 to pollution. So that's not the bare minimum, so we're not wasting modules by doing this, so that makes me feel a little better. So we've got a lot to work on here. Thank goodness we have robots, because man, doing all of this would be super monotonous if we didn't have a automated factory of robots doing all this for us. It does seem a little weird that circuit boards aren't running completely at full blast, but I don't know, maybe they were never designed to do that. Some of these early setups just did not have the capability of pumping out 30 items a second. So pollution might actually be kind of high right now because we're doing all of this, but at least now when you look at the chart, there's no specific thing that's really bad. That they're all kind of fairly well balanced with themselves now. Well, we've probably got enough of this placed, where we can remove the old part. Then it's time to clear all this out and capture more ammo. Looks like there is a little dead spot in here without a radar. There it goes entirely. Wall's not ready yet, but... That is a pretty crazy area of effect. I could barely even get here. I feel like maybe it was a little overkill with all of this. But nonetheless, it makes me feel a lot safer having a wall so dense like this. Like they are not getting through again. Well, the intermediates bus can certainly get its fair share of attention. So blue chemical plant to purple. Since we're making a ton of batteries right now, we might as well update. And then replace all of those modules. And I'm not sure about the balance with any of this stuff, but what about those powder mixers? Probably should. Kind of just jumping around the factory, fixing anything that seems out of whack, and trying to clear the pollution out a little bit. I don't know if it's meaningfully going down. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think that it is, because now it's around 500 or 450. Guess it depends on where in the factory you are, but also it kind of does it in the sense where it's just bad everywhere. Let's see, why are we producing uranium the bad way? Ah, probably because we changed some of these modules out a bit, so they're not as productive anymore. So if we select all this, now it's at 26. So I'm actually going to remove the on condition specifically for uranium for this one setup, just because we're kind of messing with it a little bit, and that'll let it go back up. Okay, well we actually have 60 pieces of plutonium now, which is enough to see this setup get started. So to begin with, I'm just going to, it's going to look weird, but remove that splitter and let it just go straight into that one, and remove this splitter and let it just go back out so nothing gets wasted. So when we hook this up, it should get going, but I kind of want to cut those out because this needs to be set to plutonium only. So here we go. Let's see what our 60 pieces will do. The belts are all kind of mixed and matched, but it's plenty fast. And you can see it's just snaking its way in and snaking its way out, but every time it's doing that, it's making one extra plutonium. And basically the idea here is to just wait for it to produce enough to be fully saturated. But since this is the first one, this process might happen faster if the whole chain is purple. And then we can just kind of switch it back later, but there we go. We want an on and an off condition for this. So the question is how much plutonium do we ultimately want to have? Probably around 10,000 or so. I mean, we need more, but if this setup can do like 7 plutonium a second, then it's more than capable of keeping up with the rockets. We'll say if this is under 10,000. And hey, we actually have a warning for one of our patches going down. It's been a long time. Of course, there are more things we can do, like scan it for more resources, so it's not that big a deal. But everything seems to be working. And you can kind of see now, even though it's only been running a few seconds, it's almost got 2 recipes worth of resources in here, because you can see how it's almost got enough to keep going without getting interrupted. It's getting very close. I mean, every time it repeats the cycle, it's making actually essentially 2 plutoniums, because it's one for the productivity and one for the regular recipe. So hey, look at that. Now it's filled up on plutonium. That only took a couple of minutes. And this one machine is using 33.75 megawatts and 270 pollution a minute. So it's certainly contributing to our total pollution, but it's kind of important, at least when it comes to plutonium. And now you can see how it's basically trying to fill itself up, and every time it repeats the cycle, it's adding a little bit and a little bit more. But it looks like 136 is the maximum amount that the machine will hold. And now that it has, it's starting to back up, which is just crazy, the amount of plutonium this thing can make in such a short period of time, considering how long it took to make it naturally. But you can see that it's starting to back up in the slightest amounts, which means we can probably hook up the second machine. And if we hooked up the belt here, it would go into this one, and we're probably at the point now where we don't need to have this stuff kind of super maxed out. Although that does actually need to be purple now that I look at it. Just until the point when it splits. So I think that's back the way it came. Now we just need to let this run for a while until it can saturate the belt again. At least the input belt. And it's kind of annoying that we can't see our reactor is running indicator when this thing is full to such an extent, because it's quite important to see what the status of the factory is. Uh-oh. Well, that's more old wall stuff, so it makes me feel less bad. So to get rid of the flashing, we'll just remove the warning, because we know what's going on here. Because I want to be able to see what the reactor's doing. And I am eager to get this plutonium figured out, because then we will be able to burn the plutonium, and then that'll end up being a lot less uranium that we can mine. Wasn't really intending on it, but with the power output that we need, probably gonna have to. But it looks like all of these machines updated, which means time for more modules. Luckily, it seems like this wall is basically done. It's just kind of waiting on all the ammo to get filled up, but most critically, the biters aren't making it through. Look at all of that. Looks like they're stopping them before they get anywhere close to the wall now. Well, I mean, we can clear this out to an extent. Okay. This only took a few more minutes, but now we're backed up on plutonium again, which means we can start up one of the other processes. This will add plutonium to another 2 centrifuges. And hey, it fully saturates itself again. And now we're building more plutonium. Which means time for the last one. At this exact square, pollution is certainly very bad as these things go nuts. But at the same time, it's not that big a deal to put a pollution cleaning in there. Because putting one pollution cleaning drops so much pollution out of it, but that we are getting 5.03. If we drop 2 of them out, it would certainly go down. But what that means is that we would have to produce more uranium in order to produce more plutonium. Because then we can do the 2 pollution cleanings, and suddenly it's so much more reasonable. Because yeah, we do that, and now it's at 246, the bare minimum. Productivities are nice, but not when the factory's getting trashed. And this is certainly creating a huge amount of pollution. You can see the pollution is dropping by like 10 per second in this chunk with how much this was creating. And it does seem like we're basically falling behind on uranium here. At least the 235, because we haven't quite ever really gotten it up to 100, which is what the goal is. But this thing is going full blast and it's building up our plutonium quite quickly. So we are definitely at the point where we can make fuel now with it if we want to, which I do want to do, even though the factory is basically handling itself okay without it. Nonetheless though, we probably want to attempt to max this out. Exactly how is hard to say, but let's just pick all this up for now. So for this to work correctly, we need to copy these two, and then down here, and get like one more of them in here. How could we be missing blue belts? Well, something about that recipe must have changed. Anyway, those two should be set, so I think the logic is back. Now it's just a question of where did our blue belts go? No cobalt steel gear wheels. And none of these get them. Well, I'm not sure where to put them other than on the cobalt steel bearing belt, but it's probably not fast enough, but I guess we can upgrade it. Oh, I see what happened. Something very weird. It looks like this got misaligned by one belt, and I kind of remembered this situation here. So this needed to go kind of like this right here, which means finally the gear wheels are back, and finally we're going to start making the blue belts, and already up to 3.1k of plutonium. Alright, our uranium expansion is now complete. Let's see ultimately what this will give us. 40. So not quite there. So I kind of wonder if we should just have speed modules in the machines at the very back. Although also having the productivity in there might help too. Just make these kind of hybrid machines. And they're way faster, you can see, 7.75. Well, that made them a lot faster. But the stack isn't fast enough. Although it looks like it just got there. We're still kind of running out of uranium though. So we need more. And since we have hopefully 2 belts worth now, we should be able to get the full value. So what is this? 67. And it looks like it does keep up. Let's make sure we're not overloading one of these belts, because we might be. Kind of, yeah. Because it's 30 of each resource, which means we do need to use purples here. Taking away the productivity modules does hurt this to an extent. At least for the time being, pollution is clearly too much to manage. At least it makes the biters extremely angry. And that's a lot more uranium. But it shows you, though, how just taking out a few productivity modules and then suddenly you're, like, short on resources. Like, they're very good. But maybe a little bit later we can review things and put productivities back in, especially if we have module 8s. But yeah, there's our 2 full belts. Now finally that thing's gonna run basically at full power. Oh wow, look at that! It's actually running. So we found a 234. Amazing. I'm gonna get here before it's done. See, there we go. Wow, that is slow. 700 seconds, no wonder. And with the productivities, it takes even longer. But when this runs, we're essentially just going to get double the amount of 234 as fuel cells. So pretty good. Well, from here, besides finishing our wall down here, because it looks like the other walls have finished, and biters are calming down a bit. Out of curiosity, what's the pollution cloud look like? I think it's better. But nonetheless, the 2 northern walls are done. So now we just need to do the big southern wall. But beyond that, we now have 2 different nuclear fuels that we can burn. Finally, we have the 234. So we need to make our set of reactors to run on that, and it'll be pretty small. It'll just be one of these, but it will have different logic. And while we're at it, we might as well create a setup that will burn some of this plutonium, because we can create it so readily and we don't immediately need it for anything. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.